After working with creatives for the last 11 years, I've heard one statement more than any other. I hate marketing. I get it. It can be painful trying to figure out how to market your book or movie or comic. When I started podcasting, I had no clue how to do any of it. I was afraid of doing it wrong, looking like an idiot or making a marketing mistake that I could not recover from. It can be paralyzing. Sound familiar? If it does, let me see if I can help you. I got my MBA in marketing, so you don't have to. Sign up for a free session today to talk about your marketing goals and to see if we're a good fit. If nothing else, you'll get some insights that might ease your mind. Go to southgatesmallbusiness.com and sign up for a free session today. Welcome to Alley Chats. I'm your host, Rob Southgate. Alley Chats is a virtual artist alley featuring interviews with artists, filmmakers, podcasters, writers, really any creative person you might find at a pop culture convention. My goal is to help draw attention to cool people and to hopefully help them get some new fans. I want this podcast to raise up these amazing people and to inspire you, the listener, to chase your dreams as well. You can follow Alley Chats on Facebook and join the conversation. I'll add more social media in the future, but for now, that's the best place to interact with me. You can also email me directly if you would like to be a guest or have a guest suggestion. My email is rob@smgpods.com.
Hi, welcome to Alley Chats. I have a duo with me. They have a new comic coming out, and that's what we're going to talk about. I've got Lou Peterson and Eddie Borey, and let's hope this isn't foreshadowing the name of their book. We'll get to that. I'll let you guys say it. I don't want it to be foreshadowing, though. Okay?
It's not foreshadowing.
Just making that clear. Yeah. Okay, good. Okay, so guys, welcome to the show. Let's start out by hearing about you guys, and then we're going to get into this comic. Okay? So first of all, let's start since I'm looking at my screen here, and Eddie is on my left. Eddie, we're going to start with you. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about you, what you do? We'll get to your book, but let's hear about you a little bit.
Well, this is my first comic book, so I'm new to that. But I've been a screenwriter and a playwright. I live in Los Angeles, and Final Interview was sort of that's our comic book, and that's what we started working on during COVID.
Okay, just like this show, it all started during COVID. Somehow this horrible thing was an impetus for creativity and for great things to happen. I'll take it.
Yeah, we didn't have a choice.
Yeah. So we'll start. I'm going to talk to Eddie a little bit more, Lou. You just sit tight. I see you anxious to tell me your life story, too.
Hey.
So, Eddie, you said you're a screenwriter, you're a playwright. You've been doing that for a while, I'd assume. What have you had anything produced?
Well, also during COVID, Boss Level came out on Hulu. That's a movie I wrote with my brother, Chris.
Cool.
It's like an action movie. It's funny. That was another repeating day time loop movie. But when we wrote that, the development period was so long, Hollywood being what it is, there were no time loop movies except for Groundhog Day.
Oh my God.
So, because we sold it like 10 years before it came out or something ridiculous like that.
Sure.
So I was tortured by the idea that by the time it came out, reviewers would complain, yet another time loop movie. And we wanted to say, no, we were the first. Well, the second. Groundhog Day's the first.
Right. Now, where can people see Boss Level?
It's on Hulu. It's still on there.
It's on Hulu.
Yeah.
You may have said that. Anyone that watches or listens to the show knows I'm not in my normal environment. It doesn't sound like it, doesn't look like it. So I'm a little off kilter. So bear with me if I miss something we said here. Well, cool. So you've had that produced. You said you're also a playwright.
Yeah.
What kind of stuff have you written for that?
I had a play go up downtown here. It's called Christmas in Hanoi. It just got published though this year. So that's
cool.
That's a first.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. I always want, yeah. So Yeah, no, it's been fun. It's fun to see it, and it's fun to see a play in any form. Yeah, yeah. As a
Yeah,
screenwriter,
sure.
you work on so many scripts that never see the light of, production, even if you get paid. So there was a double pleasure with the play because first seeing it produced and then seeing it in book form. And plays actually make good reading, unlike
Yeah,
screenplays. They'll never be
right, right,
meant to be screenplay. They'll publish very famous movies in book form, but no one reads it for pleasure.
right, right.
So,
Whereas plays, I get you. I get you. In
uh,
fact, I remember at my grandparents' house when I was a kid, I'd be down in the basement. They had this huge library of stuff, and they had a whole shelf of plays.
yeah,
I thought that was really cool. I'd sit and read the plays all the time.
yeah.
Uh,
I mean, I used to read a lot of plays as a kid because, for one thing, they're easier to read as a kid. They should introduce kids
sure,
to reading by handing them plays because there's way less text,
right.
than a novel or a thing. It's like handing the kid a short story, basically. And
Yeah,
there's an
it's how I feel
inherent,
about comic books too. I mean, comic
yeah,
books being the type of medium it is, it's a wonderful way to get kids to read.
yeah, and they both function on dialogue. So
Yeah,
that's another. I think the dialogue for kids is inherently comprehensible, more than deep, detailed psychological prose. Kids
right.
understand, oh, this is what one person is saying to another. I don't know.
Agreed.
So
Agreed. When it gets deep into description, sometimes,
yeah, the kids
or
get
or
bored.
or it gets into like allegory, and they're going, what? Let's,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I get it. I get it. So, all right, we're moving over to you, Lou. Lou Peterson. So, Lou, tell us about you. Tell us what you do, what you did on Final Interview.
Right. So Eddie's the writer of the comic. I'm the artist of the comic, and we
Excellent.
combined we combined our forces, and you made this. I'm not really an artist for what I do for a living. I'm an experienced designer. I work for various tech companies. I work for the Defense Department, and I'm a contractor with certain utilities and infrastructure organizations. But I do have an art background. That I kind of co-majored in art in college, and I've always kept it alive in, nights and weekends. I've shown at galleries for like paintings, but this is the first time I actually did a linear sort of narrative comic book, form. So it was the learning curve for me was
Oh,
pretty easy. Yeah. But I definitely, like I said, I learned a lot, but it was fun. It was fun doing it. In terms of prepping, getting ready for this, I looked at. I'm not a huge in-depth comic guy. There's a lot of Japanese people I like. Junji Ito and Otomo, people like that. Mobius from Europe, Frank Miller from
oh my
America.
God. I'm a huge Mobius fan. Love it.
Dude, he's great. That's my Bible.
I mean,
Yeah. Lou
yeah,
doesn't
you
read
want to
any.
talk about,
Lou doesn't read many superhero comics though, and he didn't grow up reading superhero comics as a kid. But he
okay.
I appreciate
but
that.
he knows people like Mobius.
Yeah. Well, it's funny
Yeah.
because I used to read super comics when I was a kid, and you kind of get tired of it. I went way deep into the indie comic scene, but when you mentioned Mobius, I also, when I was way too young to have this, had a subscription to Heavy Metal, and that
Oh,
always had Mobius in it. And I don't know,
yes.
my parents just went ahead and got it for me. It's like, cool. They were like, oh, it's comics. I'm like, yeah, yeah, it's comics. So that's where I got introduced to Mobius and just addicted. Love that style. Love that whole thing.
Dude, his heavy metal work is so good. It's so inspiring. It's something like his stuff is something you can always go back to, always look at it. And like I said, if I can't think of something, I just turn to Mobius for inspiration, and
Yeah.
he'll just inspire me every single time, no matter what phase he's in. Like the heavy metal phase, like yourself, it's probably my favorite too. But then his early stuff, and then his kind of Jadowski stuff, and then his later, just everything he does is
Oh, it's all great. It's
it's
all
all
great,
great.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like I said,
So
it's a learning curve, and but it was fun. Yeah.
very cool. So, okay, tell me about Final Interview. Now, Final Interview is not out yet. Am I correct?
It
Comes
comes out
out
on October 9th.
October 9th. Okay, so we want to
Yeah.
get this podcast on so that people can go and pre-order or call their comic book store and say, hey, get this in,
Yeah, that would be
which
great.
does help. Anyone listening, it helps the artists and the writers if you do that. So contact your local store and ask for it. Okay, so October 9th 2024 is when this comes out. Give us the pitch on it. Let's hear. What is Final Interview?
Gosh, we're so terrible with this part.
I mean, I could spout out a log line type.
It's like a horror science fiction comic. It takes place on the day. There's a group of characters undergoing an interview at this high-tech corporate headquarters, and it's the day of a terrorist attack. So it's very character driven. It follows the characters one at a time, one issue at a time, and it's about them trying to survive the day.
Cool. Now, is this going to be like a one shot, like you're going to do 6 issues and you're out? Or are you like, no, this is an ongoing series. We're just starting from this interview standpoint.
I think if I can answer this, Eddie, I think it depends on, there's so much story we can just keep going ad infinitum on this, because as we're developing it, especially Eddie, the characters got richer and richer and so much more interesting. And I could see just, as Eddie was creating it, it was really cool to watch. I think a lot of it depends on what kind of traction this first run gets.
It's designed to keep going.
It is, okay.
So it's 5 issues. There's going to be 5 issues, and then it's designed to keep going after that.
If we can.
All right, Eddie, I got a question for you then. Yeah, right. Let everybody buy it. Tell your comic book store so they can keep going. Eddie, I got a question for you though. When you were coming up with this concept, were you intending it to be a comic, or what attracted you to writing for the comics?
I mean, I grew up reading superhero comics, which included like now classy artists like Miller and stuff, but that was incidental. You know what I mean? So right. I actually didn't get exposed to things like Mobius until well into adulthood. But I do like, I did like although I haven't followed any titles in years, definitely I grew up on superhero comics. And then the other thing I discovered in adulthood is I really love, Lou and I both love old EC comics, like Tales from the Crypt, Dawn of Fear. That was definitely one of the major inspirations on this. Like, depending on the issue, you can see a bigger or smaller EC imprint, those are the best.
Yeah. I'm with you. I'm a huge fan of that. And talk about the artwork. When we're talking about like loving Mobius, you look at that, the artwork back then, the Gain stuff, Wolfram stuff, and that you're like, I just love that stuff. I just can't get enough of the detail and what they do with it. I get you, man. EC
those guys
awesome.
were incredible. Those EC people, it's unbelievable what
it's
kind
just maximum drama as you move from pen. The way they tell the story is just maximum drama. It's never boring.
Have you ever read the Scott Larson books where he wrote like Understanding Comics, and then he wrote one about writing comics?
Sure. Oh yeah, I think Lou had to read it for a course.
Oh really?
Hard reading.
Okay. So Understanding Comics, when that came out, I was walking by. There used to be a comic book store. This is going to make no difference to you guys if you're not in Chicago, but it was where the Tower Records was, and down below it was a Moondogs Comics, which is very weird because all of it's gone, every bit of it. But I was walking by Moondogs Comics with my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, and I see a poster for this thing that says Understanding Comics, and I was like, oh, let's go in. And Scott Larson was sitting there signing. So I got to meet Scott Larson 100 years ago and talk about this, and it was just really cool. And then the next thing I know, I'm seeing it in college courses, and it's like every artist I know has read these books. But he talks about like motion in the panels, the white space, and all that, which opened my mind to it when I read it. So I get it. I get why you like that in EC, because it definitely.
I mean,
I also read Understanding Comics too back in the day.
We reread it both in the last couple of years when we were starting this. It was a lot of. I mean, I know this is like something that comic book creators know about already. Blah blah blah. Like people, it was a lot to learn. It was a lot. There wasn't as much overlap between other forms of writing I've done as I had hoped. More with playwriting than with anything else. But you don't have much real estate on the page as a writer. I mean, those old EC comics, they're like half text.
Right. They took up all the space with text. They did some writing.
So our second issue probably is the closest to that. We wanted something with a very text heavy, lots of flashbacks, lots of compression of time, the way the EC stories.
That
A page in an EC comics, they'll do something like they'll try to lay out the whole story of the marriage, right? The first panel, instead of being like one continuous action, one continued action scene, right? The first panel will be their happy wedding day. And then the second panel, she's like, honey, can't we go out to the movies? And he's like, fix me another drink, dummy. And then the third panel will be like her crying. You know what I mean? It's like they'll
She's died of old age in the third panel. You're like, what the hell?
So they have this way of compressing time. That's very cool, and also not as common anymore. It's kind of a staple in the old DC comics. So, anyway, that was a digression. Sorry.
Well, it's really interesting too, because I worked with helping to get Tales. It's not Tales from the Crypt. It's Tales from the Vault, made into an audio drama. I actually helped close that deal, and part of the thing that made that happen was it was so interesting. The way it's written, translating it into script form, audio script form, it was almost easier than other formats to try to translate that way. Yeah. But it wasn't, you couldn't do one-to-one because it was so different, but it did lend itself really well. And then because of the way they write, that quick time and that jumping, it made it really compelling audio drama. It never got boring, I thought. So, I get that.
I would love to hear that.
Yeah. You know what? It's on, it was exclusive on, doesn't matter, Stitcher, but I think it's on Spotify and it is on Amazon.
All right. I'll check that out for sure. That sounds up our alley.
It's really good. Really cool stuff. I wish that we could have continued on and done the rest of the series. They just did one season and we're out, but it's really cool stuff. Okay. So final interview. We've told people when it's coming out. This might be important. Who's the publisher? Is it you guys? Are you with a publisher?
No, Scout is publishing, but it's going to be under their Dark Harbor imprint. So that's
great
for the horror comic.
A new horror imprint they just launched in July, so we're one of the early.
Very cool. Very cool. I might have to reach out to them. I do a lot with horror authors and say, hey, let's get you guys on and talk about it. That's really good to know too. If you're going to your comic book store, tell them it's Scout Comics. It's their new horror imprint. That helps too, because they might look it up and not see it immediately and just skip it.
Right.
The more breadcrumbs we can lay for them, the better it is to get your book successful, right?
Right.
Yes.
And I'll put links in show notes for people to order it, people to buy the book too, because I'm super excited about this. Horror, that's my jam. Horror comics, I can't get enough. This sounds really, really fantastic, right up my alley. Okay, so for you guys, I got one more question. Technically, I have two, but we're going to go with this one first. So I ask this every time on this show. This is the ultimate convention, whatever that means to you. No restrictors. We'll start with you, Lou, since we talked to Eddie first. Lou, who is the number one person you would want to meet at this convention? And if you can't think of one, Eddie, if you have one, you can jump in. I don't care who says it. I
mean, honestly, I guess this is sort of a cliched answer, but I think Frank Miller, only because I have read a lot of his stuff, especially his early stuff, and his synthesis of his writing and his drawing to support the writing, and how he just his general line work and how he used it for really interesting narrative effect was really inspirational for me. And I guess Mobius too. I'm thinking of people I like, but his
pick two. That's cheating.
Okay, fine. I guess I'll say Frank Miller just because the way he draws seems so effortless and dynamic and unique. I would have to say him.
You know what, Lou? I'm going to give it to you. Mobius is sitting next to him. You get to meet them both. All right.
Thank you.
Eddie, who is it?
Can they be dead?
It can be anybody. I said no restrictors. Doesn't even have to be comic book. This is a pop culture convention.
Mine's so bad.
Come on.
It would have to be Stan Lee.
Why is that bad?
Because it's such an obvious
But people see for Stan Lee.
And also the thing that's really bad about it is if you want to know what Stan Lee thought about anything, you can find video about it already. or audio. I don't know how much new information I would get out of sitting next to Stanley.
But you'd have met him. It's cool, right?
I mean, it's just he was in the middle of so many things.
Yeah.
Whether other people deserved more credit or not, he was kind of right in the thick of putting together books that I read, was still reading decades after he created them as a kid. So it's like, I'm always going to give, anything that I like in childhood gets extra points for some reason. I'm more sentimental about those things.
I get it. I'm giving you a pass on it. It's a great answer. All right. So where can people find you? This is the last question. Where can people find you? What's the social media that you like to interact the most on?
Oh, do we have social media?
Probably Instagram.
Okay.
All right.
Where would they find you? I mean, it can be personal. It can be for your company. It can be whatever.
Lou has an
Instagram. There's two things. There's Scout Comics on their Instagram, and Lou Peterson is my person. Okay. And those
on Instagram. I'll put the links in the show notes. Okay. So, Eddie, you got anything, or are you just like,
no? Thank you.
Lou.
Thank you for being kind. Yeah.
But go rent Boss Level or go watch Boss Level, and then write to Eddie and say how awesome it is and that you want a sequel. And let's get this book into the stores. Let's encourage these guys. Thank you so much for being on.
Thank you.
Hopefully, we'll see you at a convention at some point, and everybody can buy books and get signatures and fist bump. So, all right, guys.
Hey, thanks a lot, Rob. Our first interview. Rob. Thank you for.
Hey, good. Hey, you had a weird one. This is a weird setup for me. So you survived the weirdest one.
Yes. Nice. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you for your patience. All right, everybody. Thank you again. And we'll talk soon.
Yeah, we'll be in touch.
It would really help me out if you would rate and review this show on whatever platform you use to listen to this podcast. Good reviews help others find the show, which ultimately helps the people I've interviewed get more exposure. You can connect with me on social media or via email. All the links are found in the show notes. If you like this show, you'll like other shows from Southgate Media Group as well, such as Read Between the Lines, a podcast featuring insightful interviews with some of the hottest authors out there, or Go Fund This, a podcast where we interview people about their amazing crowdfunding projects. You can find our shows wherever you listen to podcasts, so give them a try. And if you like what you hear, don't forget to rate and review our shows. It really helps other people find them and keep our team inspired. Alley Chats is a production of Southgate Media Group, hosted, produced, and edited by me, Rob Southgate. Thanks again for listening to Alley Chats.